Welcome to the third in our series of sessions on radon. In our first two sessions, we learned that radon is an odorless, colorless gas that permeates all of our homes in varying amounts. It occurs naturally in the soil and groundwater surrounding our homes. It has been identified as the leading cause of lung cancer, and of course would be a serious health concern, not only here in Michigan, but all across the country. But the average levels here in Michigan are almost twice the average of other states. 1 in every 4 Michigan homes has a radon level that poses a significant health risk. Radon usually enters our homes through cracks in the concrete, mortar joints, and even open sump pumps and untreated crawl spaces. In our second session, we learned how to test for radon in our homes. Tests are available from your local health department and various home and hardware stores. Most radon tests can be performed by the homeowner themselves. Other more sophisticated tests, however, should be done by a professional. Today now, in our third session, we're going to discuss what you can do if the radon levels in your home are considered to be dangerously high. And joining us once again is Les Smith, an indoor radon specialist from the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. Les, welcome once again.
Thank you, Jerry.
When we talk about fixing it, often the word that is used is mitigation. Other than the word fixing it, what does that mean to you, mitigation?
Sure, thank you. Mitigation is any system or method that has been used to reduce the radon levels in a building. There's 3 common methods for mitigating a building. There's what we call subslab depressurization. There is drain tile, and there's submembrane. I'll start at the top there. The subslab system is used to basically pull or draw radon from the soil underneath the building and discharge it outdoors. The drain tile system uses a similar process, except it's pulling the radon gas through the drain tile system, through a sump, and discharging it outdoors. And then the final one, which we call submembrane, it's a method we use to mitigate a crawl space. So the crawl space will be covered in plastic. There would be a piece of piping that would be placed in the crawl space, attach that to a fan that will pull radon from the dirt floor crawl space and discharge it outdoors.
Mm-hmm. Sounds kind of complicated when you put it that way, though, but does it take long to set up a mitigation system?
The installers in our state here in Michigan can take about half a day to put it in a radon mitigation system. And it's going to come into play different factors, the complexity, how big the foundation is, where they place the suction point if they have to go through the floor, where they're going to route the piping outdoors to the home's exterior.
So essentially you're taking the radon gases that are entering your home and you're venting them back into the outdoors.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Sounds like, depending on the system that you get, one could be fairly inexpensive, another one could be a little more expensive.
The cost to install a system in the state is going to vary. With the cost these days, you're looking at somewhere just under $1,000 on the low end to put in a radon mitigation system. It could be upwards of $2,000, depending on, again, routing of the system piping through the home and any other unique features that the home may have.
I wonder, this doesn't sound like it's a DIY project by any means. Can the homeowner do anything to mitigate or at least reduce the amount of radon that enters their home?
There are some Michigan residents who are savvy in the DIY area who have been able to put in radon mitigation systems in their homes. We hopefully that they follow up with some additional testing and things to confirm that it's working properly. But there's sealing and caulking can be done at a minimum, but generally sealing and caulking alone are not enough to keep the radon levels down over the long term. It may reduce it temporarily, but not over the long term. It's very difficult to find every crack, every crevice in a home's foundation. If the home has had their basement has been remodeled, for example, if there were holes in the floor for putting in plumbing for a basement bathroom, you may not see those. That might still be open to the soil below or hiding underneath the shower stall or underneath the tub or a sink, and you may not be able to access that. That's still an entryway or a pathway for radon to be pulled into the home. And so those will be hard to get to.
Yeah, I'm wondering, too, if somebody tried to do it themselves, is there any chance they could do more harm than good?
Yes. If the system isn't put in properly, there's a potential to potentially backdraft natural gas appliances. So instead of trying to reduce the radon levels in the home, you could potentially cause the radon levels to go up, or potentially cause a carbon monoxide issue in the home if the system isn't installed properly.
Before we get too far in the weeds on mitigation, maybe we should go back and review when it might be necessary to do mitigation.
Sure.
So at what point do you need to do mitigation?
Sure, that's a great question. When talking to residents in Michigan, it really starts with that first test. If that first test is at the U.S. EPA action level of 4 picocuries per liter, we recommend a follow-up test. Do a second test to confirm that initial test result. If that follow-up test confirms that the radon levels are elevated, again, anything that's at or above 4 picocuries per liter, then you want to take the step to reduce your exposure through a radon mitigation system or some other means to reduce the exposure in the home. Again, radon exposure is a long-term issue over several years, and once someone tests and determines that they have elevated radon levels in their home, it's an easy fix to take the steps to reduce those levels in the home.
If you determine that, let's say you do the testing, and that it does go above this level of 4, that at what point do you say to yourself, I think I really need a professional here to come in and assess the situation and tell me what I need to do?
Sure. For most, in Michigan, we recommend use of a certified, credentialed radon contractor to properly diagnose and design a radon mitigation system. That is someone who has been trained by the National Radon Safety Board, someone who's been trained and credentialed by the National Radon Proficiency Program, to have learned about what radon is, how to design a radon mitigation system, and to properly install the system so that they are reducing the occupant's exposure. So again, we recommend the use of a credentialed radon contractor to do the work. The installers are required to take continuing ed credits and stay up on the latest revisions to the National Radon Mitigation Standards, and to follow them to the best of their ability.
How do you find a professional to do it? I mean, you can't just call up the Angie list, I suppose, or the handyman in the Yellow Pages. How do you find somebody?
Great. Here in Michigan, you can reach out to me at the State of Michigan Indoor Radon Program. You can also visit our website at michigan.gov/radon to see a list of certified and credentialed radon contractors operating in our state. Visit one of the credentialing bodies, whether it's the National Radon Safety Board or the National Radon Proficiency Program, to look for a credentialed service provider in our state.
Let's say now you have a professional coming to your home. Are there certain questions that you should be asking of them?
Yes. I always treat this as if you were getting a new roof, you would ask for at least 1 to 2 quotes if you want to have something to compare. So with a radon contractor, try to get multiple estimates, 2 to 3 at a minimum. Ask the questions about what work will be done. How will the contractor install the radon mitigation system? Are they a credentialed contractor? And if so, can they provide their credentialing information? In addition to cost, what methods will they be using to reduce the radon levels in the home? What guarantees? Most contractors will guarantee to reduce the radon levels in the home below 4 picocuries per liter. And the only way to know that work has been done after a system is installed is to do a follow-up test to confirm that. And that should be done within the first 30 days that the system is installed.
I know we talked earlier about the length that a test should be done. It can last for a couple of days, or they could last for months, I suppose. After mitigation, is there a specific kind of test that you should use?
Sure. After mitigation, you can still go back to your local health department or your home improvement store and pick up another radon test kit and then run it for the similar duration. You can run it for the short term, 2 to 7 days. You can do a longer term test if that's necessary. But it's important after that system is installed and turned on and is activated to run that test. And then to see what the radon levels are in the home. If the follow-up test confirms that the radon reduction is underway, that's great. If, however, the radon levels have not fallen after a mitigation system has been installed or haven't fallen sufficiently, then you can contact a contractor to have them come back and make adjustments to the system to help reduce those levels even further. The goal here with the radon mitigation system is to get to as low as reasonably achievable.
Right. What are you going to see when they're all done? I mean, will the system be visible to you, or will it be hidden behind the walls or beneath the cement slab, beneath the basement, outdoors? What's it going to look like?
Excellent question. The radon mitigation systems are mostly visible, particularly on a home where it has a retrofit. That's one that's being installed to a home after it's already under construction or after it's been constructed. So a resident who has a system in their home will see PVC pipe. It looks just like plumbing pipe because that's exactly what it is. It's plumbing pipe, except it's got a different purpose. In the case of a basement, it will start at either the sump itself or through the concrete floor. That pipe will run up to the top of the basement wall. It will then turn and be positioned. The remainder of the system is actually visible outside of the home. The radon fan itself will be outside the home, and then the rest of the plumbing pipe or the PVC pipe will be visible outside the home, right up to the roof line. Inside the home, what resident might see is they will see a performance device called a U-tube manometer that will be attached to the pipe in the basement area. They will also see a label that contains the information from the contractor, who installed it, the date it was installed, what the initial pressure rating was for that U-tube manometer on the pipe. There should be some additional information for the resident to see, who do I contact if I can't, if the system stops working. The fan is the only moving part on this, and that fan is designed to create a vacuum that's stronger than the home's vacuum. Recalling back how radon is actually pulled into the home, it's pulled in through mechanical means, through exhausting air out of the home, through use of exterior fans, wind blowing over the top of the home, and the stack effect. All those create a negative air pressure. With a radon mitigation system, that fan is being used to create its own negative pressure to help pull radon from the soil and discharge it outdoors. So again, that's the only moving part. The U-tube manometer should be a little bit offset, and the U-tube, the dye-colored fluid tube, will be offset, more of like a little bit of a J shape versus a U shape. If it's more U shape, it means something's happening with the fan. The fan's not moving air. There might be a blockage at the end of the pipe. In either case, you go back to that label on the pipe, and you should be able to find the contractor who installed it and have them come back for repairs.
That tube that you talk about, and I'm not sure I could say the words, so but for us lay people, is often called a candy cane, I understand.
Yes.
Yeah. So there are indications on that the homeowner could recognize that there are issues with the system and that it needs attention.
Yes, about once, probably at least once a month, and if not daily, just take a look at that U-tube manometer and what's the shape? Is it a little bit offset? That's great. That means air is moving through the pipe. That's going to be your only indication that air is moving. That U-tube manometer is not a radon measurement device. It is there to let you know that the fan is working and moving air. The only way to know what the radon levels in a home after a mitigation system has been installed is to conduct a second or follow-up radon test. So the offset, and again, if that's more of a set at zero, or the two lines are at zero, or more the tube looks more U-shaped, or the fluid in the tube looks more U-shaped, you should want to call the contractor to have them check it out.
No. I'm wondering, you say that it's a PVC pipe that goes outdoors to vent the air out. Can the installer connect the PVC pipe to an existing vent that's used for some other purpose in the house to vent the radon outdoors?
Thank you for that, Jerry. That's an excellent question. That U-tube pipe, the pipe For the radon mitigation system, it should be solely dedicated to the radon mitigation system. We're talking about naturally occurring radioactive gas that's being moved from the soil to the outdoors, where it readily disperses immediately out of the stack. It shouldn't be connected to any other venting system. It should only be connected just straight up to the outdoors and high above, away from doors, away from windows. You don't want to have a chance of reintroducing this exhausted radon back into a door or window.
No. I'm wondering if you're buying a house, let's say either new or used, and we'll get into them individually. If you're buying a house, is there something that you need to know from the previous owners as to what the history of this house is with radon?
Sure. The state of Michigan has a Real Estate Disclosure Act, and in the Real Estate Disclosure Act, there is a line that asked about environmental issues with the home. Within that line is a question about whether you know about radon in the home. If the selling party never tested the home, they won't know what the radon levels are in the home. They may have never tested. So that may be a question that one should ask. If the home has a radon mitigation system in the home, it may be a good question to ask is when was the last time the home had the radon levels tested after the system was installed. In some cases, the radon has never been tested following the installation of the system. There's just an assumption that, well, the system was installed and so we're good. But in either of those situations, the purchaser should have a radon test done as part of that real estate transaction. So at least they will know, A, what the radon levels are in the home, and if it needs to have a radon mitigation system, or B, if the system is already there, is it working properly?
Are there any ordinances as such that would require a homeowner to test before they sell their house?
Presently, there is no legal requirement to test a home for radon in the state of Michigan. In some of our surrounding states that have radon awareness acts like Illinois and Minnesota, yes, radon awareness is introduced during the buy-sell agreement, and that actually encourages radon testing as part of the buy-sell agreement.
Okay, so we've talked about buying a used home and what you might want to go through in order to recognize what the radon levels are or what the threat may be in that particular house or the risk. What about building a new home? Are there ways to make, while you're building a home, make it radon resistant?
Yes, there are ways to make a home radon resistant. In the state of Michigan Building Code, there are 9 counties that presently require radon resistant. Those 9 counties are in southern Michigan. The reasoning that those 9 counties were selected, it goes all the way back to our initial early days of learning about radon back in the late 1980s and early 1990s. There were some studies that were done, sort of early sampling of homes around the state. Around 2,000 samples were done to create this initial radon map of potential for the state of Michigan, as well as for the entire United States. And at that time, there were nine counties in southern Michigan had a high incidence of tests coming back at or above the action level, like a good 40-50% of the tests that were done were coming back elevated. So as a result, those 9 counties in the state's building code are required to build radon resistant. What does that mean? Radon resistant is a passive system. It doesn't have a fan attached to it. What the system relies on is a PVC pipe running vertically through the home while it's under construction. It's built from the ground up. Gravel bed at the base. There's once the concrete is poured, there's sealing and caulking of where the floor and the walls meet. There is before the concrete is poured, there's plastic that's put down on top of the gravel bed, and then the concrete is poured. There's caulking of the perimeter where the floor and the wall meet, and the PVC pipe that runs from that gravel bed runs vertically through the home up through the roof. The idea is that once the home is sealed up tight and warm, there's going to be a natural convection that will take place. That warm pipe will cause air to rise from the gravel bed and out through the roof, through the exhaust point for that radon system, a passive system. That's the idea, is that it'll naturally just move up from the gravel bed. If in that situation the home is later tested and finds that the home is still creating more of a vacuum than the passive system can, all the homeowner has to do is go into the attic with a contractor, and we'll do that, and cut the pipe, put in a fan, plug it into an outlet adjacent to that pipe in the attic, and then plug it in. Now you have an active fan creating suction stronger than the house and pulling that radon gas from the gravel bed below the home. So there is such thing as radon resistant techniques in the state. It's not just in the 9 counties. That's where it's in the building code. There are builders who are building radon resistant outside of the 9 counties. So when residents are looking for something, when they're getting ready to build a home, they should ask their builder about building radon resistant.
It sounds like it's a lot simpler to do it while the house is being built than to try and remediate it later on.
Yes, it is actually less costly. There's the aesthetics of it. It could be around just under $500 in materials because you already have the PVC pipe, you have the gravel, you have the plastic, the caulk. It's already there. From an aesthetic standpoint, the system is actually built within the home already, so you don't see it from the outside. If you just look at the roof line, you just see you'll see the PVC pipe sticking up. It looks just like another vent pipe from the home. Some have other than those two. Those are the big ones. Are that the lower cost and the aesthetics, that it's actually already concealed in the home, and you've already made the home more resistant to radon intrusion in the home by having that system built in.
You mentioned the baby after testing later on, after the home has been used for a number of years, that a fan may be needed to be added to the system in order to draw the radon out. While it's not a big job, it suggests to me that if the fan fits in the PVC pipe, it's not very large then, I guess.
No, the pipe is about 3 to 4 inches in diameter, and then the fan itself, it looks a little more bulky because it's got some more because of the fan blades. So it's like a ball, but it's not that big of a device on the system.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, fans have a lifespan, so at some point, if you're using it for decades, I suppose you do have to replace it every so often.
Yes. The life expectancy for a fan, particularly if it's on the home's exterior, out in the elements, it will last for, we used to say about at a minimum of 10 years. On the system where the fan is in the home's attic, for example, it'll last longer. It's not being exposed to the weather extremes. There will be some moisture and condensation that may still fall through that, but you don't have the extremes that you do if the fan is positioned on the home's exterior. So it may have a little bit of a longer life expectancy indoors. Speaking of that, typically where you will see a radon mitigation system, other than on the home's exterior, you may see it in the home itself. And locations where a fan can be placed on a radon mitigation system are on the home's exterior or in an attic space, or what we would call an unconditioned living space. Not people aren't living in that space, or underneath that, or above that space. So, for example, why an attic is a better place? If there was a leak to develop around that fan, you don't have radon leaking into a living area or beneath a living area. So that's why we don't like to see fans in basements, in which sometimes that happens in our state. Fans in basements, fans in closet space, they're there because someone tried to conceal that it's there because they didn't want the aesthetic look on the outside, but it's unsafe position to have. So really a radon mitigation system fan should be outside the home or above the living areas of the home.
All right, we've talked about the radon entering through the lower part of the house, or
Yes.
through the basement particularly. So if somebody has an apartment down there or spends most of their time in the lowest floor, in this case the basement, are they more at risk for any health problems from radon or not?
Not necessarily more at risk. The only way to know what the radon levels are in that lower level unit is to test for it. Renters, apartment dwellers, the only way to know what the radon levels are is to test the home. If you test the home, whether you're renting or owning, share those results with the landlord so that they know what they are. If the radon levels are elevated, you definitely want to have the landlord take a look at that. The landlord has the right to do their own testing to confirm what was shared with them by the tenant. But most certainly, tenants can take that action to find out what their potential radon exposure is.
We've really honed exclusively on home ownership and radon. What about office buildings or school buildings or you name it? I mean, we've got all kinds of construction. What about those places? I take it they need to be tested as well. And mitigation systems probably are more complicated in a multi-story building than it would be in a 2 or 3 level home.
All buildings in contact with soil have some measurable level of radon in it, whether it's a home or a school or an office building. Things can be done differently in a school or an office building because they have larger HVAC systems. There's some balancing that can be done, and in the event that the air handling systems cannot be balanced enough to reduce levels, or there's parts of the buildings that can't be adequately addressed, radon mitigation may be needed in some other form for larger buildings. But mitigating a building can be done, whether it's a large building or small.
Is it still the same method of doing it by putting a PVC pipe through multi-levels to the roof?
Some of it again is air handling, balancing the air handling system. Some of it might be air exchange units added to the building to help reduce the radon exposures in the building.
How are we doing in Michigan with mitigation?
I think we're doing pretty good. We have several of our contractors that are certified in our state are working real hard to install. Last year, our contractors installed somewhere over 6,000 mitigation systems, and that was actually voluntarily reported. They're not required to report that to us. We just ask, and that's what was shared with us. And that was not even from all of the credentialed contractors in our state. So we know it's higher than that, and we also know that there's some non-credentialed contractors out there who are installing. So we know it's in excess of 6,000 systems a year that are going in around the state.
Do we need more professionals doing mitigation, or do we have enough to do the job that's necessary in Michigan?
There's not enough, actually.
All of this is, of course, determined by residents' interest in radon to begin with, knowing what it is, knowing what risks it poses, and what they can do to fix it. What is kind of the state of our recognition of radon here in Michigan? The average person, are they aware of it, or do you think, or enough of them aware of it that it's become an issue?
It is an ongoing outreach effort as part of EGLE, Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, to increase awareness for radon in partnership with our health department partners at Department of Health and Human Services and our local health departments. That said, there's still people that say they have never heard of radon, and I still encounter this, and so we have the conversation about what it is. So we're trying to increase the awareness amongst residents around the state. Some areas of the state have more awareness of it than others. The Upper Peninsula has more awareness of radon than Southern Michigan.
Really? Why is that, I wonder?
Back in the early days of the early testing, some of the higher radon test results that were found were actually in the Upper Peninsula, up in Marquette County, for example. So, and that was like early on. So, and then some of that has to do with the bedrock. Again, radon comes from the breakdown of uranium, and so that's in all the soil all over our state. But there's just some areas, because there was higher incidence of it or higher concentrations of radon through testing, people become aware of it. So the UP tends to have more awareness of radon than Southern Michigan. And then when you break down Southern Michigan, there's more radon awareness in, say, Northern and Western Michigan versus like Mid-Michigan and Southeast Michigan in some cases. And this is according to information from our health department partners.
So really the rural areas have more awareness of radon than some of the urban areas.
Yes, there's not as
surprising.
There's not as much testing in our cities as there are in our suburban or rural areas. So, Detroit, for example, we're really trying to encourage testing in Detroit, and our health department partners are also working closely with us to try to encourage testing in the city of Detroit. We're trying to encourage testing in Flint. So, The outreach effort is ongoing to increase awareness, and everyone's dealing with a different number of things going on.
course.
And then here's this other thing. But the thing about radon that everyone should remember is that radon is naturally occurring. It's just a natural part of the environment. It just wasn't supposed to build up to levels that are unhealthy for us indoors is all.
Yeah. Well, a big part of your job is making us aware of radon and what can be done about it.
Testing is really easy. It's one of the easiest things you could do to check about your indoor health condition is to grab a radon test kit from your county health department or go to your hardware store. I highly recommend going to the health department just to get a test kit because it's very close. And then find out what your radon levels are. If they're elevated, take steps to lower your exposure. If they're not elevated, maybe retest in another year or two just to confirm that those radon levels are staying low.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Test more than once, perhaps, is really the way we ought to be doing it. Just because our radon levels at this time are lower than the 4 that you mentioned earlier, can they increase as the years go on? Maybe because of weather changes or changes in your home. For instance, if you add a deck or add an addition to your home, will that change the distribution of radon within the home?
Yes, making changes to the home. If you tested your home and it was low initially, it is recommended that you retest anytime you make changes to the home. Adding new windows and making the home more energy efficient, which is good. Adding an addition, doing some work outside, putting on a deck, disturbing the soil, creating new ways for radon to move out of the soil and move around the home's foundation. Adding an addition, you're now bringing in a part of the yard that was not part of your property that was previously outside your home's envelope is now part of the home's envelope. So if it was low initially and you're making changes to the home, test afterwards just to confirm that those radon levels are still staying low. It's not surprising to see, after changes have been made, to see the radon levels start to climb a bit. When you're making the home tighter, the home is still sucking on soil, and now does it have the way to get out as it did previously. So it's not uncommon to see the levels start to tick up a little bit.
This may be a stretch, but if you do any kind of landscaping around your house that hasn't been done before, that suggests to me that it may change the amount of radon entering your home.
If you've disturbed the soil and made the soils looser by massive landscaping, go ahead and make that landscaping change. But just test to make sure that the radon levels are staying low.
Well, Les, thank you very much. So now we've covered what radon is, how to test for it, and finally what can be done to mitigate or limit the amount of dangerous radon entering your home. But really, that's not the end of the story. In our 4th and final session, we're going to look at what other steps can be taken to make certain that we have done all that we can possibly do to reduce our exposure and protect our family. I hope you'll join us for the conclusion of these podcasts.